Before we get started today, I just wanted to make a quick shout out to Coinella from the USA, who left us a 5-star iTunes review with the heading, "Simple but extremely helpful content. I love listening to this podcast. I take many parts of each episode and apply it to my business. I love that they are in series type episodes. It's so much easier to follow and it helps me really learn." Folks, if you want to leave us a review, we will read it out. So head across to iTunes or Stitcher or SoundCloud or Spotify or Google Podcasts or wherever you consume your media and go right ahead and I'll read it out in it before an episode in one of the following podcasts. A big thank you to Coinella for taking the time to leave that review. I very much appreciate it. It does help us with our rankings. We don't ask you to do this because we think you have nothing to do. We do it because it helps. So thank you very much. We very much appreciate that. Okay, enjoy. A couple of years ago, I was at a trade show in Melbourne, I'm pretty sure it was. And there was a fellow there who had a basically television screen set up, and you walk up to him and he puts a mask on your face. And as soon as you put the mask on your face, all of a sudden this massive construction site building appeared in front of you with garbage bins, with trucks, with lollipop men, all this kind of stuff basically right in front of you. And I was blown away. I thought, wow, this is really cool. And that was really my introduction into virtual reality, augmented reality. A couple of years later, I was overseas at a trade conference, and there was a fellow there who had a similar sort of business, I suppose. And he was talking to me about the future of virtual reality, augmented reality in relation to the trades, and how one day it may even be a case of, instead of where we're out on site as tradespeople, looking at drawings and then trying to correlate the drawings to the actual building frame and what we're looking at, you may be able to put a pair of goggles on and just look directly at it and then take the goggles off and just go and build what you've looked at. So I found it a really interesting space, and ever since then I've been really intrigued with the whole world of VR and AR. And today we're talking about that. We've got a guest on the show who is from a company down in Melbourne, Australia, and they basically specialize in VR. This is an amazing conversation. It's something that I think we're going to be seeing so much more of, and a lot of the questions I had were in relation to how the future of that may look for the industry. So I know you guys are going to really enjoy this. And if you do have any questions, or if you want them to follow up with anything specifically, by all means, head across to the show notes for this episode and you can ask them there. Or if you see this come across in Facebook or Instagram or social media or wherever that might be, or in our newsletter, by all means, just reply, ask questions, and I will endeavor to get them answered for you. It is an exciting space. I hope I covered off enough of the important points for you guys. The likelihood of that is pretty slim, I might add. So if I did miss anything, or if you want any further clarification, by all means, let me know. But apart from that, let's jump right in, guys. Enjoy. It is with an insane amount of joy that I come to you today saying that this podcast is proudly brought to you by the Sightshed's Surf and Learn program. That's right, this year we are running our second Surf and Learn program over in the Maldives off the back of the hugely successful Surf and Learn 2018 program that we ran. It was so much fun, I cannot even begin to explain how cool these events are. We basically take a group of enthusiasts, if you will, across to the Maldives. We live on a luxury motor yacht for 10 days, and we basically live the high life. We surf, we eat like kings, we drink if that's your thing, you can fish, you can do whatever you want, you can go scuba diving, all that crazy stuff. And in the evenings, we do a business workshop. So it is a tax-deductible trip, and it is just the most amazing experience ever. Last year was mind-bogglingly good. Anyway, obviously, we're taking a boat, and boats have limited seats. So if you want to come to this event, you need to head across to the sightshed.com/events, click on the Surf and Learn 2019 link, and go to the landing page there where you can secure your spot, or you can find out more information about the event. These tickets will go quickly. There's a huge percentage of the guys that came last year want to come again, and for reasons which you will see on the landing page. It is absolutely fantastic. The direct landing page is the sightshed.com/surf2019 if you want to go straight there. It is just amazing, guys. I really hope to see you there. The content's brilliant. The networking's fantastic. The location and the experience is like nothing you will ever experience. I can tell you, it is just brilliant. Anyway, that's all from me. I hope to see you there and enjoy the podcast.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to Toolbox Talks on the Site Shed podcast. My name is Matt Jones, and you are joining us once again for another episode. And today I'm joined by my co-host and guest, Brooke Smith from Champagne Soda. Brooke, welcome.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you heaps.
So today we're talking about the exciting world of virtual reality and how it relates to construction. I don't even know how we met. I think we were connected on LinkedIn through somebody or other.
I think it was, yes.
And I'm kind of geeking out on the videos and stuff that you were posting there in relation to VR. And as I was mentioning offline, a couple of years ago, I was attending an event in Melbourne, and there was a company down there that had a VR setup, or maybe it was AR, and I'll get you to explain the difference in a minute.
Yeah, sure.
And it was in relation to a construction site, and I put this mask on my face, and I was walking around a building that wasn't there. And it was the spookiest thing ever. I just kept thinking I'm going to walk into things. And then it led me to do a bit of research. I was over at an event in Las Vegas last year, and there was a guy there talking about how the possibility of down the track, at the moment when a lot of the guys out there that are on site, they read drawings and they look at, schematic plans and that kind of stuff. There may be a situation, maybe in the not too distant future where instead of looking at these schematics, and typically they are pretty hard to read if you don't know what you're doing, you put a pair of goggles on and look straight up at the ceiling, and you can see all the plumbing stack work, and you can see all the electrical data cabling and all that kind of stuff, and you can basically build it off that. So I'm not sure if that's like completely far-fetched, and I'm sure you've got a pretty good idea of whether it is or isn't. But I'm interested to hear your feedback. So thanks for joining us. And maybe just if you want to just give the listeners a bit of insight as to you guys, Champagne Soda, and how you sort of got into that side of, I suppose, or into that industry.
Yeah, absolutely. My love for property goes back to about the age of 17, where I first bought my first property. It was an existing property, but then that got me into wanting to invest more and then looking at off-the-plan developments and investment properties, whereas whenever I would go into a display suite, for example, I would be given the floor plans and just couldn't read them or understand what I was looking at. I think typically men do have an advantage over reading floor plans and maps, etc., over female. I just was very much struggling on trying to comprehend or understand what I was going to be purchasing, which led to, I guess, the creation of Champagne Soda and what we do today. So I just really wanted a tool or the ability to be able to see what I was buying in all of its elements. So myself and my co-founder, Julian, who's very tech heavy, I have more of the property background, decided to go into business together to create basically a tech company that allows the buyer to experience what they'll be purchasing off the plan.
Unreal.
We predominantly use virtual reality technology, and we were discussing this just prior to coming on, the difference between augmented reality and virtual reality. Yeah. If you want me to go into more detail about that.
But you may as well, because I'm sure no one else knows what it means. I'm sure I'm not the only idiot out there. So,
look, and I had to learn too. So I don't come from a tech background, but I'm definitely learning. So augmented reality is just simply the Pokemon Go application where you're overlapping a fake reality onto the real reality. So exactly what you were explaining before about having the ability of seeing a building that's not yet there, you can use augmented reality in that form as an application. The way that works is that you'll basically have a trigger point. So you could have a marketing brochure which has a floor plan in that brochure. You pop your iPhone or your iPad over the brochure, and that's the trigger point to activate the augmented reality, which could perhaps turn into a building that comes up on your phone.
Right.
Could be the same as if you were out on site and there was a bit of a X marks a spot or a sign where the project or the big development is going to be placed. you could hold your phone up and see what the end result of that development is going to look like in that actual area.
So it kind of gives you like a reference point and it measures off it effectively.
Yeah, totally.
Does it work as you walk around, like Pokemon sort of thingy?
You still have to have your phone on that trigger point. So if you take your phone off your trigger point, then it will disappear.
Gotcha.
So that's one thing you have to be mindful of. So if you are wanting to walk around, just got to keep it on there to make sure that it's still activated.
Okay. And then virtual reality.
So virtual reality is creating something from nothing. So there's a bit of misconception, I think, in the industry at the moment that we're finding is that people just aren't quite grasping or understanding what virtual reality or what true virtual reality is. Virtual reality is where our software engineers will actually build and model in 3D using a game platform the assets, whereas some people in the industry are calling virtual tours a 360 image stitched up and then put into an application, into a Google Card box, and that's VR when it's not really.
Right.
It's probably the easiest way to explain it is that we need to model something from nothing.
And so then if that isn't VR, what is VR?
So VR is, as I was just explaining, is that our software engineers will model, say, a coffee cup, or will actually model the building architecture using the gameware software.
Instead of stitching it together?
Instead of stitching it together just from an existing photo.
Okay, I gotcha. So, when you see these virtual reality tours or whatever you want to call it, are you saying a lot of the time they're not actually proper VR? They may be...
It possibly could be. It's if it's an existing development and they've just gone in with something like a Matterport camera or a 360 camera and have taken a 360 image of the existing environment, and then they have gone away and stitched up that to look like a VR fly-through, then that's not really true VR. True VR is when you've got the software being built.
Yeah. Okay. So I've looked at loads of your videos. I love the content you guys put out. It's really interesting. And I think like what intrigues me is the amount of detail that comes into it. And like even just looking at the videos, you sometimes it kind of gives you that kind of funny experience where you're like, am I looking at something real or is it like, is that rendered? I don't even know. Like,
Look, that's absolute credit to our developers.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, from a practical point of view, and I know you were saying Julian's probably the more, he sort of flies the flag when it comes to the technology side of things a little bit further. But I mean, what's involved when you're talking about, I mean, obviously, so for the listeners out there, you guys typically would design a virtual reality tour of a property before it's built. That's the whole idea, right? Is that so you can sell it off the plan?
In a nutshell, 100%. So we will basically work with the developer, the architects, the rendering agencies, the interior designers, and the sales agents.
Yep.
We work with all of those to basically execute our total service and application, starting off with obtaining the floor plans and the elevations of the development.
Yeah.
So we can really start working just off that and model to that. So we'll work in stages of building the biggest assets, and then we start to overlay and create the detail, etc., as the project continues. So that'll be the furnishings, the fittings, the lights, the PowerPoints, all of that. And then next stage is doing the furnishings. Our team works very meticulously on getting the amount of detail, as you just said before, how realistic our application looks is because our team have pretty much been globally recognised as putting the most amount of detail into the textures that we create.
Gotcha. And you kind of answered one of the questions that I have written down here. It was in relation to the layering. So you effectively can build like a shell and you can layer things on top of it, put a table here, put something here, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, 100%. And we also find that, sometimes if we're working with an architect or say an office fit out and they don't need all of the furnitures and the other layerings, we just use that base model to assist them in their architectural development and design. Because they can see from angles and internally as they probably weren't able to see as well without using VR. So it's a great tool in that way as well.
So Okay, it's obviously makes complete sense to use a tool like this in the industry that you're in, giving somebody a complete, I suppose, visual representation of what they potentially going to be buying. What are some of the realities behind the finished product versus, the product that they're seeing through the VR? Is it always like that, or is it?
Do you mean the end result, or if you compare our floor in VR compared to the floor wood that they will actually receive?
Probably the comparison.
Yeah, look, we model off the renders, we model off what are given to us in the specs, etc. So the similarities is right up there. What we are pretty proud of more than anything is that whenever we have a user, a buyer, or the client in the environment, they almost lose all senses of what's actual reality outside of them because they're so immersed in what's in front of them in the VR, which is phenomenal. We use game software for that reason as well, is because you can have so much interactivity and immersiveness within the VR. So we can have a user while they're in there opening up cupboard doors, changing benchtop surfaces, opening up the dishwasher, picking up a glass and throwing it across the room if they want. Wow. You can really do what you would really do in real life. So
you can effectively live in a dump, put a mask on, and live in an amazing mansion.
When times get tough, yeah. I don't want to escape reality, 100%.
Yeah, I'll take one.
Yeah, I'll take two.
Yeah, exactly. We interrupt this podcast today to talk to you very quickly about Tradie Web Guy's content creation program. That program has been designed specifically for trade-based organisations as a way that you guys, as trade business owners, can start creating content that enables you to engage better with your customers and your potential customers. It will enable you to build trust and build rapport because what you're doing is you're investing in educating them. Biggest problem that we see with our customers today is that they're not regularly updating their websites. And that's a problem because, first of all, the search engines are looking for that. And second of all, potential customers are also looking for it. Tradie Web Guy's content creation program has been specifically designed to help you get regular, relevant content on your website consistently every month. We know that it's hard when you're out there on the tools, and we know that sometimes you don't always have the time to be able to do these things yourself. So we're taking it off your hands for you. It's a service that we're offering for you guys. We want to make sure that you're getting this done because we know how important it is. Anyway, head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/content, fill in the form, and one of our representatives will come back to you. So I'm curious, what your thoughts are, Brooke, in relation to where VR is could potentially move to. This fellow that I was talking to you about before, was saying, maybe it might replace plans one day. You could effectively put a goggle on, look up, you could see stack work, you can just build off it. Is that something that you think more, and is that more, I'm guessing that's more AR, right?
Look, technology is evolving so quickly that it is quite scary. I mean, this is kind of going a little bit left, but in the States at the moment, there's a real fear for sales agents themselves because technology is taking over those positions, whereas what they have virtual bots that will greet a buyer at the door, which means a sales assistant doesn't have to be there. They can go and visit it at 11 o'clock at night, and the virtual bot will actually open up the door, give them a tour of the environment and the house, and then close the door. And then that alerts the agent, who will then follow up with them to see how they went.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's happening now. That's actually happening. So, we're coming into a time where with virtual reality, we're working in conjunction with the display suites, our VR application. We have seen in instances where VR has completely replaced display suites. And as I said, in the States, it's completely replacing the need for sales agents. So
you're effectively sacking people.
I don't like to say that.
I know, it's crazy. It's a crazy thing for me to even get my head around how it all works. And I'm just wondering, looking forward, is that something that is going to be brought across into? Obviously, with what you guys do, it's kind of at the end stage of the construction process, if you will. It's sort of, it's not. It's kind of, I suppose it's at the beginning, but it refers to the end, right? effectively, if there's people are buying things off the plan, it could be at any stage of the development process. However, it could be before anything even starts, I guess.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if in the construction phase or the design phase, etc., VR can be used. VR is really just the tool.
Right.
It's really the idea that's behind what you're trying to use VR for, if that makes sense. So,
no, absolutely, yeah, it does. And so I'm curious where you're using it right, like a lot now in that sort of area of, like, call it the construction industry, or call it whatever you want. But I'm wondering if that will at some point merge into the actual physical development of a project. Like if you've got the builders that are walking around and they're using VR to communicate to subcontractors, various things that are on site. I mean, it sounds to me like the technology is probably there. It's just maybe people aren't ready to adopt it or apply it.
Oh no, that what you've just explained is already happening.
Right.
Absolutely. We're not at that phase in our company, and we haven't done a project of that to date. But there's definitely people utilising it in that capacity.
So I've tried as I was saying offline, I've put the mask on and I've walked around, and it's like horrendously disorientating. Like I kind of felt like I was on the verge of walking off a cliff or something. However, it's an amazing experience for anyone that hasn't tried it. I'm curious, is there, and this is going to sound like a ridiculous question, but I've written it down, so I may as well ask it. In terms of, I suppose, some of the current issues or some of the areas of VR that could potentially be a hazard. Obviously, if you're wearing a mask and you're walking around an environment that is not actually what you're looking at, there could be some risk involved there. Would you say that is going to be something that they're going to have to work on alleviating to a degree, or at least, I suppose, finding a way?
So I need you to Google mixed reality. So There's a company called Magic Leap who have brought out a product which basically is augmented reality and virtual reality kind of in one. Right. Layman's terms, and so those headsets and goggles allow that not to happen. What you want to do is,
gotcha. So if it does kind of overlay, like you were saying before, so you're looking actually at something that's there, but there might be something on top of it or in front of it or whatever.
It does, and it's just the way that the technology evolves as well. Like with the headsets, we've already just recently received our wireless headsets, which up until now we've always had to have a wire in the back. It will forever start to evolve and change to the point where we'll get to just a pair of glasses. It's just the reality of the tech.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so what, in relation to the actual experience, I mean, obviously I've seen people that walk around with, goggles on and that kind of thing, but is it like a collaborative landscape? Like, could I walk around the same room with you and could we discuss things together and could we point things out and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, the virtual reality is, and that was my fear of bringing a product onto the market, because everyone was saying of how isolated it is and insulated, and it's just the one user experience. Whereas actually quite the contrary, because whenever you're doing VR, you'll have what the user is seeing projected onto a flat screen TV or a monitor. So everyone in the room is involved. So yeah, sure, just one person has their headset on and is seeing and is immersed in the environment. But whoever's in the room watching them is actually part of it as well. And we are looking forward when the tech evolves to having multiple users in the same environment. That's not far away at all. So you will have, in our scenario and in our industry, husband and wife in the same apartment, checking out the fittings and the fixtures.
Right.
But if you're in a presentation or a demo or a construction presentation where you're doing the first stage of the development and you're wanting to see what that looks like and represented it as, you'll have everyone in the room able to see that.
And does that kind of blur the lines a little bit with what you were saying before about VR, AR, like when you've got effectively two people in the same place, but then all of a sudden they're actually there in real time? Is it kind of becoming a little bit more augmented? Is it mixing it together?
That's what mixed reality is when you mix the two together, yeah.
Oh, so that is mixed reality, what you just explained.
Yeah, that's mixed reality.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And so do you think, like obviously now we're seeing a lot of these things come on the market in the space of games, and, Samsung are like all about, turning your phone into, or dropping your phone in that little mask and turning it into a VR sort of environment, which you probably think isn't actually VR, but whatever. What's the likelihood of it becoming more and more mainstream? And then what are the kind of ramifications, I suppose, around like, where will it end? Like, I'm just sort of looking out the window here at these people down the street, and I'm thinking, in 20 years, are they all going to be wearing goggles, walking around, bumping into cars?
And you're probably right, to be honest. Yeah, look, I think especially in augmented reality, when the tech becomes more advanced, that's an absolute reality. I think having like a sunglasser headset kind of thing on, where you'll be able to see the real environment, but you'll be having and look, they've got that now with bike riders. So a person on a bike can actually be wearing a set of goggles, and it can gauge if a car is too close to them, what their speed is, what their heart rate's doing, and they can see that what speed they're going at, and it's overlaid in a real environment.
Wow.
That's already happening.
Is that kind of, I know years ago Google had a crack at their, pardon the pun, at their Google Glass. Was that was kind of similar? I remember trying at one of the Google conventions, and it sort of freaked me out a bit, and I kept walking into things, but...
That's what they were trying to aim for. Was the execution fantastic? Probably not, but it's ever evolving. So as you said, in 20 years' time, it will definitely be at that stage. VR, I think, honestly, in the next 3 to 5 years, most people will have a VR headset in their lounge room and in their home.
For what purpose?
For any purpose. It could be communication, it could be VR travel, it could be purchasing, shopping, this type of thing. It could be if, a home buyer is at home and they don't want to go to a display suite or see an agent, they can literally download the application to their smartphone device or computer and view their apartment in VR at home.
Actually, I never thought of that. Like the travel side of things, that's going to bring a lot of things into like a crazy new space, isn't it? When you don't actually have to fly to, Sydney, Melbourne, Paris for a meeting, you can just chuck a pair of goggles on and be there.
Totally. And look, we specialise predominantly in the real estate sector, but we're working with companies on using VR as an introduction tool. So instead of having to get their employees on a plane to Copenhagen or to their London office, they can actually experience what the office is like in VR without having to have that expense of shipping them over there.
So while we're talking about expense, at the moment, I'm guessing it's like a relatively new industry. And I'm guessing with that, it's things don't come cheap. How accessible is this to people at the moment, and where's that heading?
For our application, yes, you're correct in saying that it is expensive, but we're a B2B organisation or company. So when it's sort of more your B2C application, then it is a lot cheaper. But also with that, our quality is of such a high standard that is the reason for our cost and pricing and where we sit in the market. Yeah. Our clients are of quite, I guess, the more elite, higher calibre. And in that sense, they expect the highest level of detail, which is what we're able to provide.
What about things like integrations? So, looking forward, when you're talking about, a lot of business owners out there are using, technology and tools that can help them with the daily running of their business, things like job management and project management, customer relationship management programs and all that kind of stuff. Do you think there's going to be, or is there already some sort of integration or a movement towards bringing together, that virtual reality aspect of of what you just spoke about, meeting people virtually, and then like a CRM where you've got all the customers' details and you can effectively be communicating them in real time through a headset, which is connected to a program? Do you sort of see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, I do. And I think that's a fun thing with VR or any of this immersive technology, is that it's limited to your imagination. It really is. And it's funny when we get out of when we're in any meeting, as soon as we start talking about a particular project, the ideas that start being thrown around are just phenomenal, because you can literally do anything that your mind thinks of with VR or these types of technologies.
It really does sound like pretty much anything's possible. It just comes down to budget and I suppose just refining the technology to suit that particular application.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, we really see that the technology is just the tool. It's the idea behind it that drives it. So, for our idea of creating the business was, we wanted a way to be able to view a property before it's built. So how and can we create that? And VR just happened to be that tool. So we work with aged care, people with dementia. So when the VR travel I was just mentioning is that, how can we give these aged care people the ability to travel when they're just stuck in a facility and don't get to go overseas anymore? How can we get them to experience that again? And that's where VR comes into.
Yeah, wow.
If we want, someone to experience a luxury yacht before they go on a trip, or they want to experience a certain hotel before they go and stay in it, how can they experience that? Well, then, you use VR.
Amazing. So I know just before we wrap up here, you look at some of the incredible technologies that have entered into the marketplace over the last, 10, 15 years. One of them maybe off the top of my head, for example, is, let's say, laser printing. So I remember when laser printing came out on the market, people were like, holy shit, this is just crazy. And it was, and it still is crazy. However, within the space of, 5, 10 years, it had pretty much gone mainstream to the point where you could walk down to the supermarket and pick one up, for $100 or whatever it was. I imagine with the increasing popularity of the virtual reality space, the augmented reality space, there's going to be a lot of movement, and there's going to be a lot of, competition coming into play as the technology evolves and as more and more companies and organizations get involved with it. Where do you see the progression of champagne soda heading, long term?
When we founded the company, there was always, this was a stage 1 to a bigger stage 2 that I can't really go into, but we foresee, and what's sort of already happening as well with the virtual reality in the industry that we're in, is that we're experiencing like virtual humans in the VR, so virtual sales assistants. So let me take you through that. A buyer will put the headset on and will be greeted by a virtual sales assistant who will, through using artificial intelligence, will talk to you, welcome you into the VR, explain, what project this is. This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. This is 140 square meters. This is on the 47th floor. And then we'll go on to ask you, what area of this apartment would you like to go and visit? And then it will basically chaperone you around the environment.
Wow.
While giving you information and answering your questions while you're in there. And we're literally looking at doing that right now.
It's so spooky, but cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Well, look, Brooke, I want to thank you for your time. This has been very interesting and kind of creepy, but mostly interesting. For the listeners out there, if you guys are interested in what we've spoken about, head across to champagnesoda.com.au. That's SODA. And check it out because it's really cool. And Brooke's all over LinkedIn. They've got some really cool videos they're always putting up there. You're going to leave a brochure behind for us, which is cool. So if anyone wants to get hold of that, you can get that on the show notes. Is there anything you wanted to add in closing, Brooke?
No, I think that's about it. It's a pretty interesting space to be in. Look, my background's health and nutrition and fitness, so to jump into
obviously
tech and real estate is like, if I can do it and find it interesting, and I think anyone can.
Well, I mean
that's interesting.
That raises a pretty interesting point as well. I mean, that virtual reality space for something like personal training. I mean, that's got to be on the forefront of exploration. That'd be huge.
Totally. You mix those two industries together. That's a $1 billion industry just there.
For sure it is. Crazy. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated. And if any of you guys have got any questions or anything, you can ask them on the show notes in the comments there, or you can ask in the Facebook group. And if you had anything specific you want to ask Brooke, I'm sure I can get her back on the show to answer that for you. So, Brooke, thank you for your time.
Great. Thanks, Matt.
And that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to the siteshed.com, where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from this show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.